So when you're talking about the New England Patriots, one thing you do have to bring up, probably the biggest concern about them, is Tom Brady's age. I mean, he probably will only be able to play for another 20 or 30 years, so at a certain point they will have to come up with some sort of replacement for him. And at the very least, they probably do want a backup, because while I do think Hoyer is a pretty solid backup, I mean, you can always look to improve in that position. So they did decide to select Jarrett Stidham with the 4th round pick, and I think there's a lot of logic to it. Let's just jump into it, and let's start things off with this play. It's going to be a cover 1 hole, and they're going to have a rub route here, so it's relatively simple. What they're going to do is have their number 2 receiver run over there to try to get in the way of the linebacker who's going to be in charge of covering that halfback, and then the halfback runs out to the bottom half of the screen, and that's the way this play is going to work. It's relatively simple, and it is a great way to beat man coverage, and so that's what Auburn is going to end up doing here. Basically, this is the type of play where you would think that if Auburn does everything perfectly, then there's no way it can fail, but of course, that's never the case. There always is something you can do as a defense to make sure you get a stop. And one of the key ways to get a stop on a play like this, if there is going to be a rub route, would be to just get a switch. Realize, okay, hey, the receiver is going to make sure he's trying to block me, so that way I'll be the one in charge of covering the receiver, and then you, defensive back, go out and make sure that you cover the halfback. And if you were to get the switch correctly, this would now mean that the halfback is not going to be open. So Auburn is going to have to make sure that there isn't a switch. That's going to be what they have to do here to make sure this play works, especially on a 3rd down and 1. You know, it's important to make sure you convert on this play. And so one way they're going to do that is look at Stidham and basically look at how he kind of ducks down and kind of looks as though he's going to be running the ball here, even though he's not. This gets Purdue's linebacker to be more focused on a potential run at first, and he's also not exactly sure where Stidham is because he can't really see him over that offensive line. So now by the time he gets up and looks up the throw, now the linebacker has no choice but to run over and try to guard his man, and at that point the receiver is already able to get over there and kind of get in the linebacker's way. This now means that the halfback is open. He's open right now, actually, so Stidham could hit him and then just pick up the 1st down, and that would be the end of it. But he also realizes, hey, I can wait an extra second because there's nobody around a halfback who I'm trying to hit. So he is going to wait an extra second and then hit his halfback, so that way they're able to pick up as many yards as possible, even though it was a 3rd down and 1. That little hesitation turned it into what could have just been a, 3-yard gain and a 1st down into a touchdown. And granted, the halfback did the majority of the work there at the end of that play, but Stidham did his part on that one to make sure that it was a touchdown. But that's kind of what you like in quarterbacks, guys who are going to know the situation and also be able to maximize as many yards as possible. That's what you want in a quarterback, and that's the kind of guy that Stidham is. He can do those kind of things relatively consistently. He's a really good player. Granted, he clearly has his flaws. He was a 4th round pick after all, but he definitely does certain things pretty well. He is not a perfect player, and one thing I have noticed is he has some sort of inconsistencies in the deep passing game. Not to say that he's bad at it necessarily, but he'll be inconsistent. He will miss some throws, and here's an example of him missing a throw. It's going to be one-on-one coverage, and on the bottom half of the screen is really the route you're going to take a look at, as his receiver is going to be running a go route. So, if you feel like your receiver can win his one-on-one matchup, this could be a good route to throw to. And as you see right off the bat, that receiver is already looking to be in pretty good shape. He already has pretty decent leverage, he's already adjacent with that defensive back, and he's only 10 yards down the field. So assuming that your wide receiver is fast, which he is, then this is the kind of guy that you would want to try to throw to on this route, because he does have a chance of getting decently open. And I mean, if you look right now, this is actually after the ball was thrown, but I mean, there's clearly a lot of space for Stidham to try to make this throw. However, he just does the one thing you can't do when he overthrows his man. I mean, so he just missed the throw. And again, I mean, literally, there's every single player who has ever played football, you could show an example of them missing a throw too deep. I am certainly not trying to say, oh, see, he missed the throw deep, don't draft him. Obviously, that would be ridiculous. But again, I also didn't mention that he's bad at throwing deep. He's inconsistent. And watch, here he'll do a very good job of throwing a deep ball. It's going to be man coverage, and the way this play is going to work is pretty simple. Well, first what they're going to do is actually send a number 2 receiver out to the top half of the screen, basically as though he's going to be trying to catch a wide receiver screen. And then they're going to send the number 1 receiver basically on a straight up go route. And basically the hope is that maybe the defensive back will think that he's going to be trying to block for a potential screen pass and kind of get a little bit closer in. So that way when the receiver runs his go route, he could gain some more space. That's not really going to work, but that's okay. One thing I liked about Stidham on this one is look at how he does a very good job of looking at the receiver who he's trying to fake as though it could be a screen pass. He has no intention of throwing it there, but he also has to make sure he sells this fake. And he's doing a very good job of selling the fake by staring down the player who he's actually not even going to throw to. From there, he moves off and is going to throw a very good deep ball. And despite the fact that it was a little bit behind the receiver was able to go back and make a good catch. So again, far from a perfect throw, but it was a good enough throw to allow the receiver to make a catch, and that's kind of what you need. Depending on the receiver, it can oftentimes be better to underthrow than to overthrow, because when you overthrow it, it's going to be an incompletion every time. But if you underthrow it and you have a good receiver, like say Julian Edelman, for example, he might realize what's going on, still be able to come back and make the catch, and also there's a chance that the defensive back just won't realize what's going on and will run into the receiver, and you'll at least get a penalty penalty. One more deep ball, it's going to be a play action to the top half of the screen, and they're also going to fake as though it could be a handoff to the wide receiver, who's going to be in motion to the bottom half of the screen. However, instead it will be going to that receiver right there, who's going to be running a very deep route, and he will eventually cut over to the middle of the screen once she's deeper in the route. I showed it a little bit earlier on the screen. It's actually going to be past there, but it's going to be off screen when he does end up moving over to the middle of the screen, so that's why I have it like that. But anyway, Stidham does a good job of, faking both handoffs and then getting in position to make a throw. And one thing you'll notice once he makes this throw and the camera cuts over to the left is look at how open that receiver is. He is completely wide open. I mean, pretty much anyone can make this throw, but look at how good of a throw he made. If he overthrew that one, it still would have been an incomplete pass, and if he underthrew it, well then maybe it's still a catch, but then it probably would have been a tackle and not a touchdown. His receiver got super open, but hey, he made a good throw as well, and that's something you have to do. His receiver did get super open, but hey, you can't hold that against him. He made a perfect throw, that's exactly where he wanted to hit the ball from a very far distance, and he was able to hit it there. As we all know, Josh McDaniels and the New England Patriots don't exactly build their offense off of deep throws. It's a lot more short and medium throws, but I have to be honest, I'm not entirely sure how much I would trust Stidham in this current New England Patriots offense, and I actually think that if he were to become a starter, like for example, if Hoyer and Brady both got injured, I would probably say McDaniels should probably change the offense a little bit, because I'm not sure exactly how good he is at making those quick decisions. Like on this play, Alabama's running a cover 2 zone, and what Auburn is going to do is actually send those two receivers to run those two routes right there, and this is actually designed to beat man coverage, as the receiver who's currently on the line is actually going to be running over and kind of getting in the way of that Alabama player right over there. If it was man, it'd be very similar to the first play I showed you, where you get in the way of a linebacker, and then the halfback is, in this case the fullback, is able to get free. But since it's zone coverage, that's not really going to work out as well, because as you see, take a look what's happening. Yes, that Auburn player runs straight into that Alabama player, but it's zone coverage, so he basically just took himself out of the play. Meanwhile, that Auburn player, who would be open if this was man coverage, isn't going to be as open since it's still zone. Really, he should try to just hit the back who's running to the flat on the top half of the screen, since there is another Auburn player who's on the top half of the screen who's going to be running deep, which will clear out the flat. However, Stidham's going to throw it to what his initial target was anyways, and really, that could have been a catch, and that is one thing you'll see if you watched any Auburn game, is just how many drop balls there were. He really could have used a receiver too who had some steady hands, and luckily for him, the New England Patriots have quite a few of those guys. But either way, even if that was a catch, it still wouldn't have been as good of a play as if he just hit the flat. That could have easily been a first down. He just made the wrong read on that one. Really though, when you watch these types of plays, it's rarely the obvious reads that he misses. It's more of the less so obvious reads that he'll miss from time to time. He's a good 2-dimensional thinker. He's not the best 3-dimensional thinker. And here's an example of him missing something that Tom Brady certainly wouldn't have missed. In fairness, pretty much every time you see somebody miss something, there's a good chance Tom Brady wouldn't have missed that. He doesn't miss too many things. But anyways, moving on here. Actually, the read you're going to take a look at isn't going to be with the receivers or the defensive backs or anything like that. It's going to be with the front 7. More specifically, 3 guys in particular. First, those 2 Alabama players are both going to run right there. The one on the top half of the screen is going to run to the right side of the right tackle, and then the one second highest to the top half of the screen is going to run to the left side of the right guard. Doing this in theory will get both of Alabama's offensive linemen to kind of have to move away from each other, and then they can simply send their linebacker in between them and try to get a straight shot to Stidham. And once you see, it's actually going to work out perfectly. So, you could give some blame for Auburn for not realizing what's going on, but you also have to give some credit to Alabama for executing this play correctly. Now, this doesn't mean that this play is dead for Auburn. It could be very easy to just hit that halfback, and he'll be able to pick up some yards. Maybe not a ton, but he should at least be able to get back to the line of scrimmage, and perhaps potentially get the first down. It's a 3rd down and 7, so you do want to get the first down here. He would probably have to break a tackle for that to happen, but hey, it's a chance. However, if you look at Stidham here, he's looking downfield, and he doesn't even notice what's going on, and that's what's going to lead to a sack. It's a mistake that you would like an NFL level quarterback to not make, and in fairness, he is not an NFL level quarterback at this point. He just got drafted. But I also think it's worth mentioning that, those are kind of rookie mistakes, and this guy actually makes some pretty good reads for a guy his age as well. Like on this one, it's going to be 3rd down and 13, and they're playing cover 2 man, which actually makes a lot of sense when it is a situation like this. Auburn's going to try to get the first down here, so with this type of coverage, there's going to be someone on everyone no matter what. Not to mention everything deep will then be in the double coverage since there are 2 safeties deep. So this is a great coverage to run on a 3rd down and 13. But 2 of the key players you're going to want to take a look at will be the halfback and the linebacker. Because for the linebacker, he's in charge of covering the halfback. So if the halfback runs a route, he has to run the round and make sure that he's covering the halfback. However, if the halfback is instead going to be blocking, then what the linebacker should do is run over and try to make sure that he gets to the passer since there's an extra man blocking. And at first, the Auburn halfback does appear to be blocking, so the Alabama linebacker is going to rush in and try to rush the passer. But then he's going to actually run out and run a route. So now this is actually perfect for Auburn because he is open, but there's one problem, and it's the fact that Stidham is not expecting him to be open. I mean, it's not like this play was designed to get a dump off to have nobody be covering him, but that's kind of what happened here. So the question is going to be, can the Auburn quarterback look around, realize that he has a man open, and get this throw off before he gets sacked? As of right now, he's completely looking in the opposite direction, but he is going to notice this at the last second, get it to the halfback, who's then able to run over and pick up the first down. That's just at the last second, realizing that you have a man open, and it's a huge play for Auburn. One last play, and this is another just a good read more than anything. Here's what's going to happen. It's going to be play action to the bottom half of the screen, and then Stidham is going to run up to the top half of the screen, and those will be the two routes that Auburn's receivers will be running. Really, the one route in particular that you're going to want to take a look at will be the number 2 receiver who's cutting up to the top half of the screen. Since, Stidham is going to be running up in that direction, that could be a good route to throw to, especially since this is man coverage. However, one problem is going to happen right off the bat, and it's the fact that Alabama player right in front of him is doing a great job of rushing the passer. This is a first down and 10, so they don't need to convert here. They don't need to do anything fancy, and so what does Stidham do? Just throws the ball away and let's go to second down. That is something that nowhere near enough young quarterbacks do, but it's something that's so important of don't try to get too fancy. Just throw the ball away sometimes. That's okay. I mean, how often do you see players get themselves in trouble, not just with throwing interceptions, but also, taking a hit or potentially even fumbling the football? So much can go wrong if you try to make something happen when nothing is there. Sometimes you gotta just say, okay, well, it would have been great if that play worked out, but you know what? They did a great job of rushing me on that one, so I'll just throw the ball away and take a second down and 10. A second down and 10 is a lot better than a second down and 17, and it's also a lot better than an interception, so it's what you gotta do sometimes. One of the things that makes Tom Brady so great is the fact that he'll throw the ball away on third down and 10. Football is a long game. Sometimes you do have to throw the ball away. Plays are gonna go wrong, but you have to minimize the damage when a play does go wrong, and that's what he did on that play, and that's what he does on a lot of plays. I think it's pretty safe to say he's probably not gonna be Tom Brady, I mean, that's kind of impossible standards for someone to live up to. I'm not even sure if that's why they drafted him, honestly. They could just be looking for a backup quarterback or a third-string quarterback, honestly. But the Patriots do actually have a pretty good track record of drafting quarterbacks in later rounds. I mean, obviously there was that Tom Brady guy. He was pretty good, but even recently, they got Jacoby Brissett with a third-round pick, and they got Jimmy Garoppolo with a second-round pick. So, I absolutely trust whatever New England is doing, because it always seems to work.